Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, we've just had the patch notes released, actually, incredibly 1 week early for this league, which is unbelievable. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going on this league that it actually looks fantastic. In fact, the Scourge League itself looks amazing, and the new crafting system that they're embedding with the Blood Crucible crafting looks unreal. Now, this video, as per every league, is a quick roundup of 5 good, solid builds that will get you there and get you through the sort of start phase of the game, and I'll provide a bit more explanation than I have in last videos with a bit more pathing options that I've benchmarked through POE.ninja and other relevant builds. I've pulled out build guides that I've had a look at 3.15 that look pretty consistent. Now the tree itself, in going through the Q&A. I guess yesterday and watching and making note. So the nodes in the tree aren't really changing, except that we're getting that additional empowerment node to keystones once you unlock them, which is going to make, give you even more power to any build that you're going to work with. There are some changes in the tree, such as elemental equilibrium, which is moving into the Raider area. But that shouldn't really affect builds like Cold Dot too much, because there are also buffs that are coming in the way of changes to the base damage levels to a lot of skills as well to compensate for that, which is why I'm confident in particular one of the builds that I'm putting in this list. Outside of that, yeah, it's going to be a great league. I hope, because we lost a lot of players last league. Now, Forbidden Right totems, just as a sort of notable point before we get into the meat and bones of this video, is nerfed into the shit. So I'm not going to be including a Forbidden Right build in this curation video. But anyway, here's 5 good builds to get you started for patch 3.16 in Path of Exile. Alright, so the first build that we're actually going to look at is a bit left of field, but I did a playtest on this in Standard League on one of my Guardian tunes, and it was unbelievably fun. Now, the tree that, and this refers to the build that subtractem put up in relation to the Holy Relic Guardian. So, pretty much how this works is you can summon a cap of 2 Holy Relics. The way that you do this is you actually use an item called the Jeffrey's Legacy Great Crown. Now, this item is actually dropped from a prophecy reward, which is off the back of the Jeffrey's Crest, which is actually an extremely cheap item at league start in particular, and drops all throughout the game quite frequently. Basically, all you need to do is go in and collect enough silver coins. This is if you want to do it yourself. Get the Bishop's Legacy, put the Jeffrey's Crest in your cache, and then all you need to do is go and kill the Pagan Bishop of Agony, which can be found on the Cursed Crypt map. So it's actually very easy to get 2 Holy Relics into this build. Now, what makes this build really special is just the absolute sheer amount of life and armor and everything else in between that you can stack into this build. From memory, or from looking at the tree, you can essentially stack into Divine Flesh, max out Chaos Resist, max out all Elemental Resist, have a huge amount of armor, and in this league with the patch notes, armor is actually more meaningful. Health regeneration's massive, huge life pool. Some trees I've seen for this, which I'll provide, I believe I have a second benchmark tree that I'll also provide a paste bin for, that was from 3.15 league as well. Which got up to about 10,000 HP on this build. It's just an absolute meat bag, and it's as simple as you drop your 2 Holy Relics, and then you just cyclone around maps. And then as you cyclone, that then procs the Holy Wave, the Holy Wave from the Holy Relic, and the Holy Relics do all the damage. Now, cluster nodes or cluster jewels, everything else in between, really, really cheap on this build, as you'll see in the tree. There's nothing really crazy about this build. You will notice in the POB on Subtractem's video, though, that you do need to click on Cyrus damage. This drops it down to about 441k per relic, which is pretty good considering the amount of tankiness. Now, with all the changes this league to elemental avoidance and being able to get, for example, a belt that gives you, 4 flasks with uptime on the Guardian in particular just makes this an incredibly powerful build to go into League with. It's cheap and easy, just needs a 6-link stave with plus to gem sockets, which, sounds hard to get, but is actually quite easy on that particular item, or within reason. Now, some of the items you'll see in the tree, they aren't in particular League start specific items, but it's a very, very forgiving build to level up and play through and really consistent. And it's honestly different and a lot of fun. So give it a shot if you want to try this one out on League start. That you shouldn't really have any issues whatsoever. Going to be the Vortex Occultist. Now, for anyone following my channel, I've actually already put up a video of a very good League start iteration of this. Now, looking at the patch notes, there were some changes to elemental equilibrium. Now, it is shifting in the tree, yes, but if you have a look at the base damage changes to Vortex and Creeping Frost, they're actually getting buffed. So that will hopefully compensate for the differential of cold dot or elemental equilibrium being shifted so elsewhere in the tree, which means there won't be a lot of deviation in this build. Obviously, these are only League starter guides, and it'll take a little bit more time to nut out the changes with the tree in relation to that area. But aside from that, relatively all the nodes should stay the same based on even the new tree that's coming out from GGG that they've refined down a fair bit. What we might even find is this gets a lot more powerful. But one of the main reasons why I'm featuring this build and why I even did a video on it and a build test on it is just really easy to get off the ground and running through maps. It's very easy. It's basically just a walking simulator. There are some synergies to be aware of. When I broke down this build in particular, you need to be using Creeping Frost, different skills such as, and I'll just go in and have a look here. So Frost Bomb synergizes with Creeping Frost, and you will also need to be aware that you do need to have Storm Brand to be able to proc, or some form of brand to be able to proc curses such as Frostbite and Elemental Weakness. And the reason why is this then synergizes with the Ascendancy on the tree for the Occultist, which is Malediction. So then basically you have an additional curse and then you get Malediction, which incurs 10% further damage on enemies. So there are a lot of synergies here. Also, the benefits of this build is Profane Bloom. So basically, Explodey Chest without Explodey Chest. So everything blows up in a Chaos Explodey Storm, which is one reason why I really like this build. Now, there are 2 iterations. The video that I'm showing you here is actually from a creator called Darkflame. And go check out his channel. Looks like he's a newer guy on the block, getting set up. Give him some love and support. Now, he's done a bit of a build sort of showcase, but not necessarily a guide because it links to further guides within his video. Now, that iteration of the build is a low life build, so it does use Prism Guardian, Chevrons, Wrappings, and everything else in between. The reason why, and I've provided in the description along with that, that's your real end game sort of setup, and it's expensive. However, starting out, you're going to be going Chaos Inoculation if you're going to commit to this build, and then essentially building through a CI build, and then you should be able to get up to about, I think on my build test, I got to about 5,500 ES pretty easily, and about 450k cold dot DPS with all the synergies in place. The iteration that Darkflame's using is at about 1.9 million dot, and that's because of the gearing moving into that low life sort of area where you're getting aura power from stacking some auras. Now, will the changes to auras affect this build? I don't believe they will. I don't think auras have been nerfed so much that it's impractical to run this type of build. Mainly aura changes were targeted at aura bot characters, not characters that were self-buffing from auras per se. So I'm pretty confident that this build should be perfectly viable. I mean to say, like, even with the changes to cold dot, look, if you lose like 50k DPS or something like that, that's not going to be the end of the world. And then on the upper end, if you lose 150k DPS off a 1.9 million dot DPS build with huge survivability, then you're not really disadvantaged by that at all, which is one of the reasons why I'm putting this build into the list. Anyway, check it out. I'll put all the paste bins and the links in to both my video, to Darkflame's video on this, and also the path of buildings for the league start. Now, the tree that I'll put directly in the paste bin is SSF compatible as well, so have fun with that one. Anyway, that's build number 2. Okay, so this one's bizarre, and I never thought I'd ever be putting this in a build curation video, but it's actually Death Aura, Caustic Arrow, Occultist. Now, Death Aura comes from the Death's Oath chess piece, which may not necessarily be achievable at the very start of the game, but is generally a dirt cheap item and essentially is a technical 7 link because you attach all your skill gems into the item, it then appends to the skill. So very easy to get started. Does great dot too. The other side of it is this build does use Caustic Arrow. Now, this one is from Triple M POE, the video that you can see here. Now, I've applied a tree in the description or the link to his video, or their video, sorry. However, I have also went and benchmarked a tree from POE.ninja and provided that in the description below as a second option. The reason why is the tree that Triple N POE's provided, while exceptional, that's a problem for League Start. So I've went and actually sourced an SSF tree that should be pretty damn viable from a League Start perspective. Does a million dot with Caustic Arrow, and also, you know, a reasonable amount of damage, but also implements things like Divine Flesh, maximum resistances, nearly 5.7k HP, has jack shit all armor because that's a problem with the Occultist, but obviously other mitigators around there. Now, it also does apply dodge, which we all know is getting phased out, which isn't a bad thing because now it's going to be much easier to apply evasion and essentially build into evasion nodes instead of dodge nodes. So, because evasion's getting buffed up, just in case you haven't read the patch notes. As well as that'll synergize with blind, and blind will be built into the tree moving forward. So there'll be some adjustments that we'll need to make to these trees, but you know, within a certain degree of reason and whatnot. Now, one of the best things about this build, super tanky. It has Death Aura for mapping, so you can just run around and basically Death Aura will do the hard yards, and then when you hit a unique enemy or a boss or something like that, you apply Caustic Arrow. Caustic Arrow amps up your dot even further. Bob's your uncle, everything's dead. Now, this one does use the, if we have a look at the Ascendancy, does use Profane Bloom as well, which works well with Aura Skill, Death Aura in general. Everything just explodes. Does use Malediction, and it does use Withering Presence. So it's actually very easy to max out Divine Flesh on this build because Withering Presence gives you 60% to Chaos Resistance as an overall, and also enemies are hindered, which is really, really good, especially when you don't have a lot of armor to be able to deal with that. And any armor that you do stack on this build is going to be a huge advantage because armor's getting buffed. So, and survivability in general is getting buffed. So this build's actually going to be quite good. Now, if you have a look at PoE Ninja from last league, this was one of the most played builds in the Occultist Ascendancy. And I can't see anything in the patch notes as far as having a look through, searching for it, where Caustic Arrow has been hit or Death Aura has been hit. There's definitely nothing there for Death's Oath as far as I can see. So relatively outside of the tree changes, pretty damn good build. So and in particular, I'll speak to the League Starter PoE POB, sorry, that I'm putting up in the description. There's really, aside from Death Oath, there's not really anything else that you really need to get that build started. It scales up very easily, and then obviously you can have a look at Triple N PoE's further tree to really push it up into that upper echelon of 3+ million dot DPS and whatnot once you've gotten past the league start phase. But I would definitely say this is going to be a fantastic build to run with. As yet another really good league starter for 3.16. This is actually going to be the one that I will be playing League Start because I really love the Inquisitor class and I can never find enough good reasons to play it. Now, Ice Crash, you can go Berserker and you will get more damage. But the problem with Berserker is you also operate as somewhat of glass cannon unless you have enough defensive layering to stop everything from trying to kill you. Even with the changes, Berserker's not tanky. However, in the next one, I will show you how to make a tanky Berserker. But anyway, this build I actually really like. Now, I've put POE Teachers video in this video and also curated this video and also in the description with a link to his video, and check out his guide because it's from 3.15, still very viable. However, have actually put 2 iterations of a similar, well, essentially what I would believe is potentially a more tanky and more viable version of this build in the description as well. I've actually put it in at the 2-week state of the build, and this one comes from a player by the name of KanaiExpeditionSC. And basically, I've put in 2 states of this build. One at the 2-week phase of where this build got up to, which reaches about 1.6 million DPS, and then the final stage, which gets over 7 to 8 million DPS on hit. Now, the reason why I really like Ice Crash, it's just a classic skill. It's a lot of fun. The Inquisitor class itself is really well geared for crit. Very, very tanky. It's highly survivable as well. In particular, with a lot of the mechanics that are going to be coming in with Scourge, I actually think this is going to be a great build for Scourge. Now, we're looking at, somewhere in the vicinity, even at the basic build, of 100% crit chance, 554% crit multi, and just doing absolutely dumb amounts of on-hit damage just with very basic and not very, heavily optimized gear. I just genuinely think that this is going to be a great build to play this league. Also, looking at the changes to the notes, Ice Crash didn't get touched, and if anything, all the changes that are going to be coming in will actually make this build more powerful, including the new crafting that we're going to be able to do with Blood Crucible crafting. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more options to really amp this build up to whole different levels, as well as the changes in the tree that are going to be buffing up the nodes in the tree as well. So I'm actually really keen to play this at this stage. So I'll provide these trees in the description. I'll also be playing this build on League Start as well, so you'll be able to see my take and my version of this build. And very likely I will be deviating, as I always do, in very significant ways and really testing the waters with some completely different mechanics where I can find them, and having a lot of fun in the process of doing that. But anyway, this is the 4th build that I'm going to feature here. Everything will be in the description to show you how to play this one and get it started at League Start, as well as you'll be able to see me live stream next Saturday at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. On my League Start version of this build. All right, no build curation video would be complete without a build guide from me. So this is my General's Cry Shield Charge Berserker. I went Shield Charge because Shield Crush just wasn't tanky enough. Shield Charge was just a walk through the park. And if anyone's watched my guide, it's just an incredibly fun build. Now, this one in particular, there's a couple of things to be aware of with General's Cry. It will distort in the POB, and it will say like 16 mil DPS or whatever. It's actually 4.7 to 6 mil DPS, and this is because with General's Cry, they can only exert 1 attack per whatever you want to call it, per cast, so or per war cry. So essentially, any attack speed that's distorting the actual ability itself is going to distort the numbers in POB. But anyway, we're past that. This was one of the easiest builds I have played League on League. Now, there are changes coming to Blind and a few other mechanics, but the other big thing to note is they have dropped the base damage of Shield Charge because it was just gratuitous, but what they have actually done is increase the damage min and max that you get per level. So the total, and this was also in the Q&A session, and in the patch notes, the total damage in aggregate is only down by, say, maybe 10%, 15%, which, when you really look at it, this build's damage is off the chart anyway. Now, how did I make the Berserker tanky? And this is a really good question. I used the Christian Carpus. Now, you'll also notice in the patch notes that they've actually dropped the armor on the Christian Carpus as well, which really isn't going to affect the Berserker because if we have a look, most of the nerfs, I had notes on this one written too, because I was disappointed to see that they had nerfed well, they haven't nerfed the shit out of it because that's why it's in this curation list. I still think it's unbelievably powerful. So basically, the way that armor's changing is armor is becoming more effective, which means they've dropped stats on certain pieces of armor, such as the Christian Carpus, which I think was like 2,500 armor off the cuff. So even with that reduction in flat armor, the ability or the effect that you're going to get off that armor is still going to be meaningful. The other thing that this build takes advantage of is aspect of the crab, which gives you crab barriers. Which basically gives you more physical damage reduction per the 5 maximum number of crab barriers that you do get. And the other advantage is it's bleed immune from the onset because of the chest piece. Now, you're not going to start off with a Christian Carpus. You're going to get that further down the track. Um, and I will be releasing a leveling guide for this particular build. Now, it does rely on corpse walkers as you work through into the end game. The way that you can get around this is having a desecrate trigger on channel cyclone skill, which basically triggers the corpses that you need to be able to then war cry. And if you have basically what you do is you hold down your cyclone and hold down your war cry button at the same time, and you'll just constantly trigger your minions as you're going through. Now, this is the best way to use General's Cry until such time that you can actually get Corpse Walker, so that you can actually just have it auto cast as you walk through the map. Now, when's Corpse Walker going to become available? Usually it's very soon in the league, so I wouldn't stress too much about this one. At league start, this will still be very powerful, and should have no problems leveling up through the rungs. Generally, when you're leveling this up anyway, until you get to level 33, you won't be switching to any Warcry skills in particular, because it just won't be efficient or effective and do enough grunt. But as an overall, this was one of my most favorite builds that I played from last league. Essentially, once I got into the end game, it was just the easiest build I've ever played to level up. Now, trying to do things like the Feared, not so great with the Feared because you're relying on minions to cast and home into enemies and whatnot. But I had no problems farming T8 and T9 Cyruses with this consistently as well. It could face tank most things, and for a Berserker, that's exceptional. So definitely check this build out. Obviously, spent a lot more time talking about this one than other builds, but worth the time and worth playing for this current league. So I hope this curation video helps everyone get started for the league, at least gives you some ideas. Now, obviously, with the changes to the tree, you will need to adapt the builds and apply a bit of sort of retrofitting logic around how they work. But according to Chris, the tree is relatively the same because they didn't want people to have to throw away the knowledge that they've garnered from, building builds league on league. And hence why they've released it early for us to actually, the patch notes early for us to actually have the time to plan and sort of speculate about how things will work. Now, there are entirely new crafting mechanics this league, which will mean that these builds are probably low end compared to what you could probably push out of some builds, and we're going to find that out the hard way, and make it happen. But yeah, if this video helps you, and as always, every league it's enjoyable to sit through. I apologize for the audio as well. I'm recording from the Gulf of North Queensland, so yeah, like and sub, and yeah, until next time, have a good one and enjoy your league start, and yeah, bye.